Alrighty guys, welcome back to another little video where today we're going to be taking a look at my freshly built daily driver workstation. So let me first explain. I decided for a couple of reasons that I was going to be essentially transferring off of X58 and trying something else. Primarily because X58, a non-overclocked X58 based PC, in my opinion, just really doesn't do the job for me anymore. I have recently started demanding more out of my computers than what I have in the past, and because of that, I decided it was finally time for a change. And I figured there was no better way to change things than to build what was truthfully a PC that I was looking at a long time ago. Now, what do I mean by that is I decided what parts I was going to use, and I decided there was no other option besides those parts. So, let me first go over everything inside this PC. It has an i7-2600K overclocked to 4.2 or 4.3 GHz at 1.24 volts. It has 16 gigabytes of RAM. It is Ripjaws Red that is running at 1600 CL9. For the motherboard, it is a Z77 Maximus Gen 5. And for cooling, I have a full custom water loop in here. And for the graphics card, I went with my tried, tested, and true R9 Fury. And for storage, I have a 1TB Samsung 860 Pro, a 1TB MX500, and a 1TB and a 1TB Seagate Barracuda spinning hard drive. So I have 3 TB of storage, 2 of which are SSDs. And all of my hard drives are sitting in my Icy Dock hard drive bay. Okay, so why exactly did I build a liquid-cooled computer inside of a Dell Optiplex case and literally have used nothing out of the Dell Optiplex besides the case? Well, okay, I have a good reason for this. The case actually matched literally every single thing that I wanted it to have. It was a micro ATX form factor. It had a 5¼ inch bay. It was also able to support at least 2 radiators, one of them being a 92mm radiator and the other one being a 120mm radiator. It had plenty of room for putting my hard drive bay, or it had plenty of room for storing cables, and it also allowed me to mount an extremely large power supply, which is the Rosewill Capstone 850 watt gold-rated power supply. Yes, you do have to remove the hard drive cage in the front of the PC, as well as the power supply rail at the top of the case, but as long as you're not trying to use the original side panel, none of that really matters. And so because of that, and because of the fact that I'm using just a solid piece of acrylic for my side panel, I had ample room and ample ability to build inside of this PC. Now, there was a few things that I needed to actually fix about this system, and the biggest one being the power button. So I went onto Amazon and I bought a 12mm power button for a standard PC case. And believe it or not, it actually perfectly fit inside of my front panel. All you had to do was run the cables through and then screw on the little mounting, or screw on the little mounting nut from the back side and the power button from the front side, and I have a fully functioning, fully working power button. Now, unfortunately, I lose all the front USB I/O, which I could have done a bunch of other modifications to keep that, but being the fact that this motherboard already has, I want to say, 8 USB ports, I was not exactly in need of more USB expansion. And also, I knew that I was going to be putting in an audio card, so front panel audio was not exactly needed. And so that is where I pretty much started. I found the motherboard that I wanted, being the ROG Maximus motherboard for the Z77 chipset, so that allows me to upgrade to the i7-3770K if I ever desired to, but I will probably be making a video about that in the future. I had the ability to put in both a Wi-Fi card and an audio card. For my audio card, I went with the Asus. I'll put the actual model number on screen here because that's actually a very nice audio card. And I also put in a Wi-Fi adapter for Wi-Fi 6. Now, the amount of expandability that these PCs have is lower than if I were to have gone with a standard ATX size case. But there really wasn't any reason for me to go any bigger than M-ATX because I actually had the ability to build what I wanted to build. And that's ultimately what this PC was. It was me building what I wanted to build. And pretty much having no other exceptions. But now that I explained like kind of how and why I built this PC, let's just get right into the benchmark so you guys can understand how much better of a performer this is in the day-to-day tasks that I need compared to what my non-overclocked X58 system was. And the first game that we are going to be starting with is Dota 2. Now, Dota 2 performs very, very well on this system, primarily because Dota 2 focuses more on single-core performance than multi-core performance. Now, this video is from a online match, like a high MMR online match, with the camera set to auto. Now, this is at 1080p, 100% maxed out, without using anything like the FRS stuff, because the R9 Fury does not actually support it. And this is an extremely competitive experience, and I can say from personal use of this system, I have never not had an extremely good time playing Dota on this system. I think the lowest FPS I've ever seen it drop to was 78, and that was with a vacuum wall into just a whole bunch of other spells, so yeah. Alright, so the next game was Rainbow Six Siege, a very popular first-person shooter. Now, this game, yet again, extremely competitive experience. I don't personally play Rainbow Six, but I like to add this one into the roster just because of the easy-to-use benchmark tool. And this system, yet again, ran this game very, very well. This was at 1080p high settings. Because of the VRAM limitation, we weren't able to take it any higher than that, but it was 1080p high settings. And we got a whopping 227 average FPS. Now, the next game that I tested was The Division. Now, this is the original Division, a very good game. Unfortunately, the video got a little bit wonky for some reason, but we were sitting at an average of 62 FPS. Yet again, another very competitive experience, even though this game is more of an MMO. And the final benchmark that I decided to throw in here was good old Grim Dawn. Now, Grim Dawn is yet again a game that focuses very heavily on single-core performance, not necessarily multi-core performance. So, having a 4.3 GHz single-core CPU, or having a 4.3 GHz CPU, gave this game much more playable, much better frame times. Now, this was at 1080p maxed out, and yet again, just a fantastic experience. I did not test many other more difficult games, but everything that I threw at this system ran very, very well. And so this is kind of where I am sitting now. This PC does everything that I want it to do better than what my old PC did. Now, I don't think X58 is bad by any means. It's just having a non-overclocked X58 PC is just not doing it for me anymore. And for the longest time, it did a very good job. But I do plan on keeping that system around just because. But there are also another few more creature comforts that I really need to also talk about with this system. Number one, having just overall significantly lower heat output. When I would have my Dell Precisions turned on and have it running for most of the day, my room would heat up to being 10 to 15 degrees above what it was everywhere else in my house. Now that would be 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit, not Celsius. So having that being the case, it just made using that computer to be a lot less more comfortable. It was just a lot less comfortable than using this one. Secondly, another big comfort that this system has that my other system didn't was PCIe Gen 3 and SATA 3. Now, I know that you can get that on like the Chinese X79 motherboards, but without the proper overclocking support that I was going to have with something like this, I just didn't see much of a reason to go with the Chinese motherboards. And finally, when it comes to just overall daily usability, I feel far better using this machine than what I did using the Dell Precision. But like I said, that does not make the Dell Precision bad, because as a value for money PC, that thing far exceeds what this one is. Don't forget, you guys, this is a fully custom hardline water looped system in a micro ATX case using rather nice copper radiators and a rather nice water pump. So this system is not low end by any means. But another thing that kind of went into making this system happen was the fact that the only parts of this system that I couldn't, in theory, reuse would be like the motherboard and the RAM if I were to upgrade to a much newer platform. Having a standard MATX form factor, having a standard power supply that is 850 watts, 80 plus gold rated unit, and ultimately just having everything set up properly the way that it is, I could, in theory, take this case and take this PC a lot further. I could, for instance, buy up a Micro Z490 motherboard and throw in my i3-10100 if I saw that to be a good option. On top of that, changing out the water pump to something a little bit smaller and putting in a far larger graphics card is also an option. Granted, whether or not that would be a great idea with the amount of heat that they could theoretically output, well, that's kind of yet to be determined. But with that being said, I just wanted to say thank you very much, you guys, for coming by and watching. I hope you guys like this kind of PC build that I did. It's fully top to bottom custom. Everything about it's custom. Everything about it was what I wanted it to be. And it was built very, very... everything just came together is what I'm saying. So I will see you guys later. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful evening. Have a wonderful life. And I'll see you guys later. Peace.